Hello everyone. So in today video I am going to revise my topic cell injury from my notes, and I hope with me you are also revising it. So let's start. Cell injury, basically we all know there are seven types of cell injury: reversible cell injury, irreversible cell injury, cell death, cellular adaptation, intracellular accumulation, cellular aging, and free radical injury. And in cell death, we know there are five types of cell death, which were necrosis, apoptosis, necroptosis, pyroptosis, and anoikis. So let's start doing it in detail. So in cell injury, as we all know, the most common cause of cell injury is hypoxia, and in hypoxia the most common cause is ischemia, means there is reduction of blood supply. That's why hypoxia occurs. So we have to also study that which is the most sensitive to cell, which cell is the most sensitive to hypoxia and which cell is the least sensitive to hypoxia. So most sensitive to hypoxia is the neurons, and most resistance is the fibroblast. Most sensitive to hypoxia is the neurons, and least resistance means least sensitive is the fibroblast. Now first, the reversible cell injury. Reversible cell injury means that if the causing agent is removed from it, then the cell again acquire its normal position. That is the reversible cell injury. So in this, as we all know, due to hypoxia means decrease oxygen supply. So in hypoxia, decrease oxygen supply, the mitochondrial dysfunction occurs. So what is the first change of cell injury? So the first change of cell injury is mitochondrial dysfunctions. Due to the mitochondrial dysfunction, there is no ATP synthesis, so there is reduction of the ATP level. So as the ATP level is reduced, it works in three way. Mitochondrial dysfunction, in it three parts, like first is the sodium potassium ATPase pump will fail due to the low level of ATP. This pump not work. So as the sodium potassium ATPase pump is failure, normally it absorb the 2 potassium and 3 sodium it release. So if there is failure of this pump, then there is sodium reabsorption, and with sodium water also reabsorbed. So there is cellular swelling, that is hydropic changes. So hydropic changes or cellular swelling is the first morphological change. This is the morphological change. And what is the first change of cell injury? That is mitochondrial dysfunction. I am not talking about the morphological change. Morphological change is the cellular swelling or hydropic changes. And there is endoplasmic reticulum also swell, and there is cytoplasmic blebs were formed. And in this, myelin figures were seen in both reversible and irreversible cell injury. Basically, in the irreversible cell injury, number of the myelin figures will increase, and number of myelin figures will increase in irreversible cell injury, and in reversible cell injury, in it is the starting of the myelin figures formation. So myelin figures, at they were composition is phospholipid plus calcium, as we all see that these were the myelin figures like concentric circulars. So in electron microscopy, every picture which is black and white, that is electron microscopy. That is, we can see it on the electron microscopy. So this picture is of electron microscopy, and we see that there is concentric lamellation. So this is the concentric lamellation, that is the myelin figures, and the composition of myelin figure is phospholipid and calcium, and it shows both reversible and irreversible cell injury. So next is the hypoxia, and the second part, that is anaerobic glycolysis, because if the mitochondrial dysfunction, then there is decreased supply of the oxygen. Then in the mitochondria, anaerobic glycolysis takes place, in which there is formation of the lactic acid, and as the lactic acid will form, then our pH will decrease, and as the pH will decrease, nuclear chromatin will clumping of nuclear chromatin. And the third one is there is rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes detached, and protein synthesis will decrease, because the main function of RER is protein synthesis. So if the rough endoplasmic reticulum in ribosomes were detached from it, then protein synthesis will decrease. So due to the mitochondrial dysfunction, three processes will take place: decrease sodium potassium ATPase pump failure, due to which there is cellular swelling, hydropic changes, ER swelling, and myelin figures were formed. Second is the anaerobic glycolysis, due to which there is clumping of the nuclear chromatin, that is the nuclear chromatin clumping. And third is the ribosomes detachment, and it leads to decreased protein synthesis. Now next is the irreversible cell injury. So what will happen between the reversible and irreversible cell injury, so that it change into the irreversible cell injury? So there is severe damage of the cell membrane, there is severe membrane damage and severe mitochondria damage, so that it cannot reverse, it cannot be reversible. So that's why it convert into the irreversible cell injury, because the membrane is very severely damaged and mitochondria also damaged. So as the membrane is damaged, so there is increase of calcium absorption, so calcium will get accumulated inside the cell. And as the calcium will, as we all know, in every for the activation of enzymes we need calcium. So as the calcium enter into the cell, then it activates the enzymes like phospholipase, protease and nuclease. And also the calcium will deposit into the mitochondria, and amorphous densities will, as the calcium deposit inside the mitochondria, it leads to amorphous density. And it amorphous density is only seen in irreversible cell injury, not in the reversible or irreversible. Those were the myelin figures which seen in both reversible and irreversible cell injury. This is the amorphous density, which is due to the formation accumulation of calcium inside the mitochondria and calcium accumulation, and it's all only and only seen in irreversible cell injury. So now what were the nuclear changes which will take place? So nuclear changes, as we see, this is the normal nucleus, and here there is a shrinkage of the nucleus. As we see, in normally the size of the nucleus is larger, and in the pycnosis there is shrinkage of the nucleus. So pycnosis means shrinkage, so here shrinkage of nucleus takes place, pycnosis. After that there is breakdown of the nucleus, karyoraxis means fragmentation of the nucleus takes place. So this is the karyoraxis. Raxis means fragmentation, raxis means fragmentation, and pycnosis means shrinkage. There is shrinkage of the nucleus. So this is the shrinkage, this is the karyoraxis means fragmentation of the nucleus, and this is the karyolysis means the lysis means something dissolved. So there is dissolution of the nucleus. So this is the sequence of the nuclear changes: pycnosis, karyoraxis, karyolysis. Now we come to the cell death. Till now we revise our reversible cell injury and irreversible cell injury. In cell death, we already know that there are 5 cell death: necrosis, apoptosis, necroptosis, pyroptosis and anoikis. In necrosis, necrosis is the pathological cell death, and it is associated with inflammation. And apoptosis is both physiological and pathological cell death, and it is not associated with inflammation. No inflammation inside it. In apoptosis there is no inflammation, and it is A for apoptosis and A for active process. A for apoptosis and A for active process. So now we are learn about necrosis. So necrosis is a passive process. This is a passive process, and it is a pathological cell death associated with inflammation. And in this, on microscopic examination, we see that pink color, amorphous density, and it is associated with inflammation. So what are the types of necrosis which we study? So basically we study about coagulative necrosis, liquefactive necrosis, fibrinoid necrosis, and caseous necrosis, and fat necrosis, and gangrene necrosis. These were the Janker's degeneration. Basically Janker degeneration comes under the coagulative necrosis. So these were the 7 necrosis. So we are studying about the coagulative necrosis. So in coagulative necrosis, as it is the most common necrosis, so most common necrosis is coagulative necrosis, and it generally the mechanism of coagulative necrosis is denaturation of proteins, and it involves the solid organs except the brain. Brain is not involved in the coagulative necrosis. Brain is in the liquefactive necrosis. So solid organs like I just draw it. it involves the kidney, liver and heart, liver and kidney. So in this there is tombstone appearance is seen, and this is the picture. We see that this is the kidney in which there is coagulative necrosis, and in the microscopy as we see there are this is the normal, here is the normal and this is the injury cells. So this is the normal cells, and apart from it this is the injury part. So in injury part we see that the outermost line is preserved and the outlines are preserved, but inside details are the lost. So these were known as the ghost cells. So ghost appearance is seen inside it on microscopic examination. So tissue architecture is preserved in coagulative necrosis. So in coagulative necrosis we study that it is the most common necrosis, and the mechanism is denaturation of proteins. It involves the solid organs like heart, liver, kidney, and it shows tombstone appearance or ghost cell appearance. Next is the liquefactive necrosis. In liquefactive necrosis, or we can say colliquative necrosis, it involves the brain and pancreas. And in brain and pancreas, as there are many enzymes, many high level of hydrolytic enzymes, and in this, that's why it shows the liquefactive necrosis. So in liquefactive necrosis, mechanism of action is due to the enzymes, hydrolytic enzymes. So in this, tissue architecture is not preserved. In coagulative necrosis, tissue architecture is preserved, but in liquefactive necrosis, tissue architecture is not preserved. And the examples were brain and pancreas. So as we see in this diagram, there is the necrosis, liquefactive necrosis seen in the brain. In this, tissue architecture is not preserved. Next one is the caseous necrosis. Caseous means the cheese-like. So in this morphologically we see the cheese-like appearance. So in caseous necrosis, gross examination, we see cheese-like. So caseous necrosis, it includes both coagulative plus liquefactive necrosis. Both were involved, but the more is the coagulative necrosis. This is the more sign. Coagulative necrosis plus liquefactive necrosis, both were occurring caseous necrosis. So examples, we must remember the examples. So caseous necrosis examples were TB, histoplasma and coccidioidomycosis. In this, high lipid content in cell wall. So high lipid histoplasma and coccidioidomycosis both have high lipid content in cell wall. So this is the morphology, gross morphology of the see that there are the air space, and this is the cheesy appearance, and we see caseous necrosis. Now next necrosis is the fat necrosis. In fat necrosis, basically fat, in this the example were breast and omentum. In breast, due to the trauma, fat is broken down into the fatty acids, and in omentum, due to the pancreatitis, there is lipase released. This is the enzyme which is released due to the pancreatitis, and it breaks the fat. So fatty acids will increase, and fatty acid combined with calcium and chalky white appearance. As we see, this yellow part is this all yellow part is the fat, and this white is the chalky white appearance. So this is the fat necrosis. Now next is fibrinoid necrosis. It is seen with antigen-antibody interaction. So we must remember that fibrinoid necrosis is seen in antigen-antibody necrosis. And we have 3 examples. Those were the polyarteritis nodosa, malignant hypertension, RSD. Fibrinoid necrosis, it involves 3: PAN, HTN, RHD, 333. PAN, HTN, RSD, rheumatic heart disease, hypertension, malignant hypertension, polyarteritis nodosa. And in C, as we see in microscopy, that how to identify that what is in this. So basically we see that in the center there is the red portion, that is the red blood cells. So it is the lumen of blood vessels, and this red portion is the red blood cells, and we see, so around it there is fibrinoid necrosis. Here also we see. So this is the fibrinoid necrosis. Examples were PAN, HTN, RSD. Next is gangrene. So in gangrene, basically it is a clinical term, it is not related to the pathological term. And as we all know, gangrene were dry and wet gangrene. In wet gangrene, that is the liquefactive, and dry gangrene, that is involves the coagulative necrosis. Wet gangrene, liquefactive necrosis; dry gangrene, coagulative necrosis. And in gangrene, there is black foul smelling comes from the comes. And next, last necrosis is Janker degeneration. And Janker's degeneration, as I already told in starting, that it is the coagulative, it's the part of the coagulative necrosis. It involves the typhoid fever and skeletal muscles, basically rectus abdominis and diaphragm muscles. That's for all for today. So